maybe one of the most important off seasons in a very long time. I know that wasn't a whole lot that Shane could do last year in terms of offseason. He really had to lean heavily on the draft. He couldn't really do much in terms of free agency. I think what he did in free agency were like Band-Aid moves. Like, okay, well, we need something to stop the bleeding. And so we're here. Here's John Feliciano. You know what I'm saying? But so we have currently heading into the offseason, the third most salary cap in the NFL behind the Bears and Falcons. It's estimated anywhere from 42 million to 52 million. I don't know why it's such a wide disparity, but I'm going to go with 52 million. We have 42 players under contract. So let's take a look at the active contracts heading into 2023. And right there at the top, oh brother, oh Leo, Leonard Williams, $32.26 million cap hit. He accounts for almost 15% of our salary cap as it stands. Base salary of $18 million. If we cut him, we'll take on $20.2 million in dead cap. So for anyone thinking that we're going to cut him, push that out of your system. However you see fit. Burping, farting, sweating, crying, get it out of your system. We're not cutting Leonard Williams. Can we restructure his contract? I think we already have once or twice. So might as well restructure it again because it would be nice to get that cap hit down because that is just like, I mean, dude, I just tweeted this out, but he's getting paid like a top 5 defensive lineman. He's tied for 4th in terms of annual value at $21 million. He hasn't been a top 5 defensive lineman. Listen, there have been games where he can just take over, and he does look like Aaron Donald in those games. But is it consistent enough game to game, season to season? I don't know. I don't think so. This season was kind of a wash because he got hurt very early on and then later on. And so I don't think he was ever, like I said, I don't think he was ever 100%. And so it's hard to judge him on this season. But given that, I still think you need to try and rework his contract because that is a lot of money to pay a guy that's just not giving you the kind of numbers that you need. Again, how many times have we talked about like, okay, pressures are good, hurries are good, but it's really sacks and QB hits. Laying your hands on a quarterback, no better way to let him to get in his head and to get him all twitchy and nervous and gun shy than actually making contact with a quarterback. And is he doing that? I don't really know. And then the number 2 biggest contract, the one that absolutely cannot stand in the 2023 season, Kenny Golladay. $21.4 million cap hit. Almost 10% of our cap is going to this dude who did not see the field in 2022. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. I have never seen anything like this in all my years of watching football. We're going on 35 years, 37 years watching football on TV. I have never seen a free agent signing like this not see the field. And not due to injury and not due to anything other than the coaching staff just doesn't think he's good enough to play. Which is, I'm sorry, that can't be right. Marcus Johnson is getting more snaps than him. Marcus Johnson. Lawrence Cager, like what? How are these guys getting more snaps? I cannot wait for the truth to come out on that. I don't think anyone's going to trade for him. And so what are the options? Well, if you cut him before June 1st, you eat $14.7 million in dead cap. And there's a part of me that thinks that Daboll and Shane don't like him to the point where they might do that, which is like, I mean, and you might say, oh, you're an idiot. Like they're just going to wait till June 1st. Because if they wait till June 1st, the dead cap will only be 7.9 million. And it's like, well, just look at the last year. They ditched Logan Ryan, James Bradbury, and Blake Martinez. Now, Blake Martinez was a smart move because he ended up retiring. I think that injury was a lot worse than we thought it was. and maybe there was some concerns about how much he wanted to play or cared about the game, or I don't know. Hearsay as far as I'm concerned, but he loves his Pokemon, or Dragon Ball Z, whatever. Logan Ryan, all right. It's a lot of money to pay a safety, and also a safety. It's not maybe top 5, top 10. James Bradbury is the one that will forever haunt me. The fact that they couldn't, and again, I think this goes back to who do you believe? Because like Bradbury is saying the Giants didn't talk to me or come to me at all. And then you have the Giants saying that Bradbury refused to restructure or whatever. So it's like, I don't know who to believe, to be honest. Maybe Bradbury did one out because he's like, this organization is a dumpster fire and looks like Philly's on the up and up. Maybe that's the case. But so if you think they're not going to cut Kenny Golladay for $14.7 million dead cap, they did. Look how much dead cap they took on for Logan Ryan, James Bradbury, and Blake Martinez. There was no real salary cap relief there, or not as, I don't know. It wasn't, I just feel like it did more harm than good, but whatever. Adoree Jackson's the third biggest cap hit. And I'll say this about Adoree Jackson. Great tackler, would love more interceptions. He does not pick the ball off. But he has shown that he can shut down opposing wide receivers. Do I think that they could probably get another corner for half that price that can do what Adoree Jackson does? I almost think they can. But again, they cut him. It's $10.5 million in dead cap. Dexter Lawrence is number 4, and he's worth every friggin' penny of the $12.4 million. And they're going to, the word is that they're probably going to start talking. They're not going to talk extensions with him until maybe after next season, which, I think Shane said it was just a case of like, well, just the salary cap's screwed right now. And we'll have a better idea of what we can offer you after we wheel and deal in the upcoming months to upcoming year. Andrew Thomas, $10.3 million cap hit, worth every friggin' penny. He deserves an extension, and we'll probably get one. Mark Lewinsky. So everyone's that was a signee from last offseason. $8.3 million cap hit. If we cut him, $8.65 million. So for everyone who's like, we need to move on, Lewinsky, cut his that. Like, you're not going to cut Mark Lewinsky. Like, he's going to be our guard, unfortunately. Kayvon Thibodeau, $7.1 million in a cap hit, $25.6 million in dead cap. We cut him. So, yeah, I think if we go down the line here, who's going to be a cap casualty? Right? There are some guys that are making a fair amount of money that aren't going to incur a lot of dead cap if we do part ways with them. So here are some salary cap casualty candidates. That's a mouthful and a half as we go into the 2023 offseason. Darnay Holmes, cornerback, scheduled to make almost $3 million. If we cut him, release him, we inherit less than $200,000 in dead cap. I tell you, hard to say. I think the general impression from Giants fans is they're like, juice is not worth the squeeze with Darnay Holmes. I don't know that he's made enough plays to justify $3 million a year. Are there better options on the market? I kind of feel like there are. I mean, he almost cost us the Commanders game. There have been plenty of times where he's got to lead our secondary in terms of flags, penalties. But kind of a physical guy. I take it or leave it. I think I'd be okay with moving on from him, but again, it's not a huge cap hit, so I'm okay if we decide to stick with him. Matt Parrott is another one that's, not a huge cap hit, $1.3 million. And if we do decide to release him, it'll be another $200,000 in dead cap. I mean, it feels like we heard such great things about him in training camp, like raw talent. Look at his arm length. Like he could be a starting tackle. And I don't know. It seems like every time he has gotten snaps, he has not performed well. So, and this is where we're at with the salary cap, right? Because there are 2 major contracts, possibly 3 major contracts that we're looking at in terms of guys that were on the team that we're looking to resign that would eat up a lot of cap. And so you got to look for any way to alleviate that cap space so that we can, bring in some known entities that we know are better than who we have. Because the draft is great. We have 11 picks. Great. We had 11 picks last year. Great. And in a future video, I will talk about how, like, I don't know that you want to really rely too much on the draft because the hit rate on those things, I don't know if it's just the Giants. I just looked at the Giants draft history. The hit rate is not great. And that's why, I look at something like, we talk shit about the Cowboys and whatnot, but like they feel like they nail the offensive line draft every time. Every freaking time they nail it. So would like to get into that rhythm. Other cap casualties. I mean, Ellerson Smith, $1.1 million. If we cut him, it'll be a little less than $400,000 in dead cap. Shane Lemieux's earning $1 million. It would cost us less than $90,000 to move on from him. And this is savings, baby. Look at all this savings. Save. Because, like, do you think that we can get better guys for those prices? Probably not. But if you make enough of these drops, you start to add it up, you can start to get a guy that's probably the combined salary that can get you at least a little more productivity. Ben Bredesen is going to make $1 million. Would cost us nothing to move on from him. But I know that, he's splitting time with Nick Gates, which I don't know that that's, I think Dable's done this he did this with Azudu and Bredesen. I know that Joe Judge was a fan of rotating in offensive line. I don't know that I'm a big fan of it because I don't know that it's really paid off. It's like one of these guys is better than the other. Unless you're talking about, okay, well, here's our Nick Gates play set and here's our Ben Bredesen play set. We know he does well in these plays. We know Bredesen does well in these plays. But in a sense, aren't you telegraphing that to their team? I don't know. Personally, I'm not as someone who is in a quarterback rotation, it sucks. I'd rather just go with a starter and have a backup. But so, if they feel like, okay, well, we had a competition between Bredesen and Gates and the winner is no one. We're going to move on from Bredesen. Gates is a free agent, so maybe they move on from Gates. Tyree Phillips, listed as a guard here, but he was a swing tackle that filled in for Evan Neal when he was out and did fairly well, as far as I can see. $1 million, no dead cap. So I'd say probably hold on to Tyree Phillips. Colin Johnson, wide receiver that everyone gushes over, big body frame. Everyone said was like what Kenny Golladay should be. $1 million on the cap hit, no dead cap. Again, I don't think you can roll into the chatter has been, the consensus has been that the wide receiver room is going to look drastically different next year. And it could be basically Wandale is like the one carryover from year to year, which is out of 6, 7, I don't know how many receivers we've had this year. But so honestly, it's like, let's talk about this guy who looks good in preseason and training camp and like give him another shot, or let's just go out and like draft known receivers who are going to ball and free agents that we know have put up numbers in regular season games. That's where I'm going to put most of my focus and most of my, my capital, most of my money. It's like in proven entities that are, don't get injured and that, give you consistent, dependable play. I don't think Colin Johnson falls in that category. So I'm okay if they decide to part ways with him. Rodarius Williams is another one, another recent draft pick, earning almost $1 million, and he'd be less than 90,000 to cut. So I I'd like to see us bring back Jason Pinnock. He's less than $1 million. I think he made enough plays to say, okay, that's good depth right there. Nick McLeod, under $1 million. I think he's another good depth piece. Again, depth piece, backups who you feel good in coming in and performing, up to snuff with the starters injured or whatever. Isaiah Hodgins, $870,000 on the books, no dead cap. I think that's someone that you keep on the team. So, I mean, there's a lot of like $1 million players here where it's like Ryder Anderson. I don't know that you saw enough out of Ryder Anderson to say, yeah, definitely we should keep him. My point here is there's a lot of these guys that are like $1 million players, less than $1 million. That's like, if you wipe them clean and you say, we're just going to spend $2 million per player, let's bump up the salary a little bit and let's try and get some players that have been proven entities in the NFL. I think that's the approach you got to take. Like Solomon Kinley is making $940,000. That guy is on the Giants. I didn't see him at all. Jack Anderson, $940,000. Almost cost us a game. There's a lot of players here where it's like, just feels like we can get better depth pieces, but I don't know. Talking out of my ass. So over the cap, seems to think we have $42.8 million in effective cap space. And if we do a simple restructure, which is converting payments, base salary into prorated signing bonuses within the remainder of the contract, and the Giants could do this without any action necessary from the player. Potential of $32.7 million in restructures, which that sounds great because that puts us in that $75 to $85 million cap space range, which feels a lot better, especially after we make some in-house moves. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then if we do a maximum restructure, it could be an additional $60.6 million, which will put us up above $100 million in cap space. Now, the maximum restructure is where you increase the amount of cap space via conversion into prorated signing bonuses by either extending the contract or by adding void years to a contract that does not extend the contract but only uses a placeholder for proration. That would need the player's consent to execute. And I think the most recent example of this is James Bradbury. Because I look at his contract on Spot Track and it's like he's earning like maybe $1 million something this year. And then he has like all these like 5 or 6 void years that are like pretty substantial or either the same or more. But he's a free agent. He's now a free agent, or well, he will be a free agent after the Eagles lose in the friggin' conference championship. So yeah, that's where we're at with active contracts and cap space.